At CG Lumberjack, we're obsessed with removing obstacles to creativity and unleashing the artistic potential of every studio. We spent the last 10 years perfecting the art of digital production in film, animation, and games. We spent the last 5 years building a foundation for working within Unreal Engine, and we're excited to share what we've made for studios looking to gain a 10x production advantage through relentless automation of everything that is not art. The following minute of Previs was built in Unreal Engine with the click of a button. There are 25 shots, 15 characters, a full environment, and the work was done in 1 week with one Previs artist and 2 asset artists using Alchemy, an all-encompassing production pipeline designed by CG Lumberjack. But before we get into the department-specific features that allowed this to happen, let's talk about the philosophy that goes into something like this. Production can be defined as follows. You have a project, you have production tasks, you have production task phases. Then you have the digital content creation software required to achieve it. Alchemy allows you to easily manage that ecosystem. The creator allows you to create shots and assets quickly, but more importantly, in a way that ensures production naming conventions are followed and task templates are used every time. The Magic Browser is the artist's portal to their tasks. It shows all assigned tasks, and with the click of a button, they can start their task, have a default file created for them, and jump right into work. The core of the actual pipeline itself is the Alchemist Cookbook. It's like a recipe book for organizing production pipelines by DCC, phase, and production task. This means pipelines for entire departments can be designed in minutes, prototyped in days, and live and stable in production in a few short weeks. For the last while, we've been really focused on workflows utilizing Unreal Engine to its fullest capacity. For example, what if you could go effortlessly from storyboards in Photoshop to 3D cameras and animation in Blender to visualization in Unreal Engine? That's the question we asked ourselves when we started working on the workbook concept. Storyboard artists ideally want to work in Photoshop, the thing that they're most familiar with. We created a way for them to easily start their task, ensuring files are in the right place and managed by the pipeline, then pop straight into Photoshop, draw their storyboards, export them to the right place, and publish them into Alchemy for use in Blender. Once the boards are published, they're able to start their workbook task, open Blender, and build the workbook. They simply go to the Alchemy menu, click the Build button, and it assembles their scene based off what was made in Photoshop. It's created a multiplane camera with the Photoshop layers. It's created a default set. This allows the artist to quickly place their multiplane camera to match the perspective and start animating the cards and key poses of the characters. Once they're done, they can render their workbook and submit it for review to ShotGrid with the click of a button. When they're ready to hand it off to the layout department, they simply publish it. To start work in Unreal Engine, you go straight to the Magic Browser, click the Unreal Engine button, and the interface shows you the available Unreal worlds from Perforce. You choose the one related to your sequence and double-click it. That will sync it locally and launch it. The artist doesn't ever have to think about how Perforce works because Alchemy manages that under the hood. Once Unreal is open, you've got the custom production menus created by the cookbook at the top, and you can open the Magic Browser from the Alchemy menu. Unreal Engine is unique because each world is essentially its own file system, so we adjusted the Magic Browser to manage production tasks, folder creation, and naming conventions inside of Unreal Engine. This saves countless days and weeks of trying to keep Unreal Engine organized as multiple artists work on it. For the layout task, we're going to select our task, click the Start button, and watch as our workbook is assembled in Unreal Engine. It is immediately evident the power of a workflow like this for ensuring the integrity of camera, scale, and composition when keeping the artistic intent from the storyboard straight into layout and 3D. So this is where things start to get really interesting as we consider a full animation production using these concepts. Remember, we've gotten this far with very minimal work from one artist at this point, and we can scale that out to every department. So to get an understanding of that, let's look at a test we recently did of our Previs pipeline. As we're watching this, think of how these two pipelines could interact. For the Previs pipeline, we'll start in Adobe Premiere with an animatic, move into Maya for Previs, and finish in Unreal Engine by auto-building the Previs we showed you at the beginning of this video. So starting with the animatic, this is where we can create shot names so that we can publish to Previs. The artist will name the shots, export an MP4 for the sequence, export a Final Cut Pro XML file, and publish the sequence in Magic Browser. This sets off some insanely cool automation that creates open timeline IO files, MP4 files for each shot, WAV files for each shot for audio, and preps everything for use in the other DCCs. When we start our Previs task in Magic Browser, open the Maya file, and you guessed it, click the Build button. This creates cameras for every shot that came out of the animatic publish. It puts all of the image planes in the right cameras. It builds a timeline in Maya's sequencer, and it imports any assets that have been identified in the sequence in shotgrid. The Previs artist can start immediately blocking out cameras and a basic environment using Maya primitives. Once they're happy with the placement of those environment pieces, they can use Alchemy's assetizer to create the first version of the production asset. You just click a button and then publish the resulting model. This allows an asset artist to then create a more detailed iteration of the model, use Alchemy to quickly start their texture task in Substance, build it from the published model, paint textures, render them, and publish them. Then the asset artist can build a look dev turntable with the click of a button in Unreal Engine, render it, and submit it for review. Supervisors can view the review in shotgrid or look at the asset live in Unreal. Once the model and textures have been published, the Previs artist can refresh their scene and get the latest models and textures brought in and assembled automatically. This workflow allowed seamless collaboration between Previs artists and asset artists, an extremely quick turnaround. Within the Previs pipeline, just like the other production tasks, you have the ability to render your sequence with the click of a button and submit it for review. Once you're ready to publish, click the Publish button and Alchemy handles everything. Once you have it published, you can go straight into Unreal Engine, find your final layout task, start it, and watch the magic as it builds the entire Previs sequence complete with shaders, sequences for each shot, sequencer for the full sequence, and perfect organization of all of the assets inside Unreal Engine. You start with a default environment light as defined by the project, and you immediately get to work with the director lighting the scene. Renders can be handled locally or on a render farm to free up valuable artist time.